Well, I do appreciate the opportunity to be with you tonight. This is actually the first time. I didn't even know Russellville, Alabama existed. I got out of the car and I asked my wife, hey, do you have any idea what county we're in? You know, I have no idea. I asked the fellow outside, I said, how much farther is it to the beach? You know, seems like I've driven a long way, you know, to get here, but I really am thankful. Philip is a good friend of mine, and I really do appreciate his words of introduction. You know, everywhere I go to speak and they find out that I am the preacher at Oddfellows Hall, I don't think I've ever been anywhere and they said nothing. Somebody always asks me, what is that, you know? And I said, well, it's filled with a lot of your brothers and sisters that look odd, you know? And I'm the chief one. So if you think I look odd, that's what you're going to see if you ever come to our area. It is a little church in the northeast part of Giles County and started a little before the turn of the century. And it was started by a group of men that were members of the Oddfellows. I don't know if y'all ever heard of those guys or not, but they're like a group parallel to the Masons, Shriners. It's that kind of organization, and their claim to fame was they wanted to take care of the widows and the orphans that were left because of husbands getting killed in war. And so they... that's how they became established, and it's on that principle that they have continued even yet today. They're not, as far as I know, there aren't any Oddfellows in the state of Tennessee now, but they've all moved to the north and to the west, okay? But they are still around. You can look them up on the internet and find their purpose as they define it. I will tell you one thing, though, just to break the ice now. You know, Oddfellows, I have so much fun with that name, Oddfellows Hall, okay? Let me tell you what liable to happen if you ever come there. One Sunday, I got up to preach, and I found out that there was a guy there from Wales. And I don't mean the Wales in Tennessee. I mean like the Wales over the other side of the pond, okay? He came and visited for a while, and while he was there, a guy came from Yorkshire, England. I thought to myself, how in the world did they ever find Oddfellows Hall? You know, I mean, and so not long after that, a family came from outside of London, and he flew for the Royal Air Force as a medic. You know, that's kind of interesting. So one Sunday they were there, and you know, I can't half understand what they say, but they say they speak English, but I don't know if it's English or not. It's certainly not my kind of English. Anyway, they reminded me that I needed to be a little careful because having that many Brits in one place is not good, you know. So I said, okay, well, I'll try to behave myself. A few years before that, we had a family come to us, and the wife was half Creek Indian and half Seminole. And so as they came and visited for a pretty good while, became members, there was another lady there, and she is Cherokee. And boy, when I heard that, I had to have some fun, you know. So I told the brethren at the end of a church service, I said, now y'all behave after church is over. There might be an Indian uprising right here, you know. They didn't get along too well, but it is a nice little church, and like I say, we have been there for several years now and really enjoy the brethren there, and they're no different than you. Just regular folks trying to learn about the Bible, encourage one another, and that's what I appreciate. All right, so enough of that. Let's get into our lesson for tonight. So I wanted to just share, I'm a preacher that does not like to give just a challenge. I like to get you down the road of having some means to accept the challenge. And certainly, this is a safe preacher question. I ask a lot of those. Raise your hand tonight. You won't offend me. Raise your hand tonight if you have never had to make a decision. Not one came up. You know, that's a safe preacher question right there. Every one of us certainly make decisions every day, do we not? Now, the issue is not whether or not you make a decision, because you're going to make those. The question is, do you know how to make a good one? Do you know how to make a good decision? Now, I know the series theme here is leadership, and certainly leaders have got to make good decisions. What do you think happens when the leaders of an organization or a group make bad decisions? What do you think happens? Falls apart, right? If you're the main guy, you know, do they play football in this state? Boy, I loved last year. I was sitting right there when it all happened, buddy. I'm going to just tell you. If you had a football coach, and by the way, my wife went to University of Alabama. I went to University of Tennessee. We have a dynamite marriage ever since Lincoln was in office. 364 days a year. You might guess what the other one is. All right, look. If you have a football coach and he always calls the wrong plays, what happens to him in the game? He's going to get beat. That's right. So it's imperative not only that you make decisions, but it's very, very, very important that you make good ones. So the question would be, how do I make a good decision? Okay. The focus not on the making one, because you're going to do that, but how do you make it good? So the Bible will answer that question, I think, if you just read slow. I want to share with you quickly three things, three events or people in the Bible that had to make a decision. And I want you to see in the Bible the basis for their decision. And when you put them all together, there's where the nugget is that we're going to find that helps us make a good decision tonight. All right, so Joshua chapter 24, you know the story here. This is towards the end of Joshua's life. And you know the classic verse that says, choose you this day who you're going to serve, you know, and then you get to choose either to follow the Lord or follow the gods of the Amorites. That's verse 15, Joshua chapter 24. And so the children of Israel now are confronted with this concept of, I got to make a decision and I need to make the right one, okay? I need to make a good decision. So with that as the decision, you know, ultimately they're going to come to the decision at this point that they are going to follow the Lord. But look, brethren, if you keep reading, you will find the basis for why they decided to follow the Lord. And we'll just observe it together. Verse 17. For the Lord our God, He it is who brought us up and our fathers out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage, and who did these great signs in our sight, and preserved us all the way wherein we went, and among all the people through whom we passed. And the Lord Jesus drove out from before us, or the Lord, drove out all that were before us, and all the people, even the Amorites who dwelt in the land thereof. Therefore, we will also serve the Lord, for He is our God. So, brethren, look, here is the reason they made the decision that they did. They remembered the past, all right? Look, they're already out of bondage. They already made it to the promised land. They've already faced enemies right off the bat when they got into the promised land. And look, God saw them through every single one of those. And they remember that. Now, let's just pause right here, because if we think about this slow, The basis for their decision was to do what? Remember the past. Remember the past. Let me ask you this. Does it ever make any sense to you when you are asked to make a decision on something? Does it benefit you at all if you remember the past? Oh, very good. There's a voice in here. Yes. Okay. Yes, it does. Will remembering the past help you then in the future? You know? Look, if I stump my toe by dropping a hammer on it, do you think it would benefit me the next time I have a hammer to remember that that dude can hurt you? You know? I've told our kids many, many, many times, I can tell you one thing to do that will help you more in life than anything else. Learn from somebody that's farther down the road than you are. Because they've already made whatever it is decision that you made, and they know the results of it. And if you'll just listen, it'll make your life a lot easier. A lot easier. You'll have enough in your wagon to pull around. Don't add more to it. So these guys right here make a decision, and they do it based on their memory of the past. My father was an elder in the church for many, many years, and I remember him coming home at night sometimes just weighted down with somebody's problem. And then he wouldn't tell me the problem, of course, but what he would do is, you know, we had to just reflect on how we've handled this in the past. Because we know however we handled it, we know what the results was. And that might have been a good thing, might not have been so good. Okay. So if you want to make a good decision like these children of Israel, you have got to think about and remember the past. And it will help you into the future. Now here's another one. Let's go to book of Ruth in your Old Testament. Book of Ruth, chapter 1. Now remember in Ruth chapter 1, you remember the whole story there of Naomi and her husband and the two sons and the wife of the two sons. Now they get to Moab. They get to Moab because of a bad decision. Her husband was named Elimelech, right? Ruth chapter 1. He's named Elimelech, and there's a famine in the land. And so he decides to pick his family up and move them into a land of idolatry. Moab, you know, worshipped this god named Chemoth or something like Chemoth or something like that. And those, let me tell you what, you wouldn't want those guys as your neighbor. I mean, this is the kind of people they were. They offer their children to this false god. Not in service, like dead. You know, they're giving their kids' life to this false god. This is a bad place. So Elimelech moves his family into there for a reason, and the reason was a famine. Now, you know what happens as the story in Ruth would begin right there in chapter 1. Elimelech dies. Her two sons die. And so who's left is her and these two daughters-in-law. And she makes a decision and announces to the two daughters-in-law that she's going back to her people. Now, when I think about her and that decision she made, was it based on the past? Or do you think it was based on the present? You may speak. It's based on the present. Because what she has learned is that God has visited her people and has given them food. And so she's going to leave Moab and go back to her people where the famine deal is over. Okay. Now, when she makes that decision, It's based on that, but could be also that she wants to go back where God is? Yes or no? I would say so. And you know the rest of the story, how Ruth is in there and Ruth decides to go with her. Your God will be my God, and so forth, the famous verse there. And the other daughter goes back into her family there in Moab. Let me ask you this. When you make a decision, will it benefit you to think about the conditions today? I got sort of a nod over here. Thank you. Let me tell you what, brethren, I don't know about you, but, you know, I am no different than you. I have to make a lot of decisions every single day. And let me tell you what, I want to know what it's like right now. Right? Because, see, not only do I need to remember the past, hello, I'm not living in it. I'm living right now. What's the condition right now? Because if I can know where I am right now and all the information collected right now, I have a much better chance of making a good decision. So when I think about her choices and her decision to go back home, I put her in a little different category in my mind than I do the children of Israel back there with Joshua. Because as stated, they make their decision based on the past. The reason she's going back is because she wants to be with God's people, of which she's one. And number two, the problem has been taken care of. God has visited those people, and there is food there. And based on that, what she knows today, she's going to jump on that and make that decision. Hey, do y'all think, just as a matter of opinion, do you think that was a good decision for her to do that? Well, you know, if you roll the clock forward, what happens to Ruth because of Naomi's decision? She marries who? Boaz. And she and Boaz have a child. And then that one has a child, and that one has a child, and that one has a child. And guess who shows up in the book of Matthew and the book of Luke? Jesus Christ. So you see, you never know the decision that you make today, how it's going to impact other people. Now, it can do that in a positive way, or it can do that in a negative way. Linda and I always told our son, you know, hey, you're going to get the privilege of making tons of decisions. Remember, the decision that you make affects me. Isn't that right, parents? Can a decision your kid make affect you? Better believe it. Okay. Naomi made this decision, and look, according to God's plan and God's purpose, Jesus is in that lineage through Ruth. So I can observe then that when I want to make a decision, I need to make a good one. And number one, I can make it good by remembering the past as the children of Israel. Number two, I can make a good decision based on what I know in the present. Now let's get one more, and I bet you can guess where you need to think on this one. Turn over to Hebrews chapter 11, where this is, the famous chapter on Hall of Faith. And there's a little guy in here named Moses. And in chapter 11, you read these words about Moses when he was making a decision. Verse 24 says, by faith Moses, when he came to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season, esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt, for he had respect unto the recompense of their reward. Now Moses, we know about him. We don't have to go back over all of his life, but you know about him. So he lands in Egypt, and he's raised up in the courts of Pharaoh. You know that. And his mother, and this doesn't happen by accident, but, his mother is selected to take care of him while he's growing up. And I can just bet you, like maybe a moon pie in RC, that's about it, that she had a little something to say to him while he was growing up. What do you think? You think she was pushing the Egyptians or pushing God's people? So Moses grows up, and now he's in enough years to where he can make an educated decision, all right? And this decision, as we just read, this decision here is one where he's got a choice of fame and fortune or suffering with God's people. From a world perspective, which choice would the world make on that? Would they go after the fame and fortune? Absolutely they would. Okay? But now Moses is looking past the fame and fortune. By the way, that Pharaoh there that was in charge, whatever happened to him? And did he take any of his money with him? Brethren, let me just make a very somber observation for you. I've been preaching a long time. And one of the things that you do as a preacher, it's a great honor, is you have to do funerals for people. And let me tell you, I have done funerals for at least two that I know were multi-millionaires. I mean, these guys were put in mahogany caskets. Okay? I mean, they had it. Now, I did another funeral one time for a guy that was in a pauper's casket. Y'all know what that is. In the state of Tennessee, there's a law that all the funeral home owners have to provide a pauper's casket, okay, for people that literally have nothing. Okay. Well, this particular guy had been driving his motorcycle home from work at night and fell asleep and killed himself. Hit a bridge embankment with this motorcycle, killed himself. Okay, watch this. They couldn't figure out who he was. So I get a call from a funeral home and said, "Hey, Randy, I need you to get over here and do this funeral." I said, "Who is it?" He said, "Well, we're not really for sure. Dental records are all filed up. We're not really sure who it is." So I go over there to do this funeral, and there's nobody there except me and the funeral home guy. And he says, "Well, we got to do something. I just feel compelled we got to do something." Now, brethren, let me tell you what. Fortunately, I did not see what was inside the pauper's casket. But I can tell you one thing, very sure. There wasn't any money in there. Oh, and did I tell you that on those two guys that were multi-millionaires, a little secret, if you don't tell anybody, there wasn't no money in their casket either. What happens to the fame and fortune? Do you take it with you? You don't take it with you. If there's ever any doubt about that, we all know, we probably don't talk about it much and we shouldn't, but we all know that what happened, the best way you know that you don't take nothing with you after this life is over? It don't take very long for people to fight over it. If you took it with you, there wouldn't be nothing for them to fight over. They're fighting over it all the time. Okay? Why? Because you didn't take it with you. Moses was smart enough to recognize, hey, this fame and fortune, all these treasures, all of these incredible material things, including Pharaoh's position, is going to end. So he makes the choice, looking into the future, that that's not the path to go down. And he's just using common sense right here now. I'm not going down that path because that stuff doesn't last. As a matter of fact, you'll remember the Bible's pretty clear about this. Everything associated with the world, what happens to it in the end? Burns up, right? Peter reminds us all that stuff burns up. You're not going to take it with you. So why would you put stock in it? So what Moses did, Moses says, okay, well, it is better for me to go and hook myself into my own people that are servants of God. And even though it's going to be hard, even though it's going to be tough, really, how long do trials last on God's clock? Did you know, by the way, that God's clock and yours is not the same? Did you ever know that? He's not on Central Time. Hey, what time zone am I in down here? Huh? Standard Time. Okay, very good. I think I live in that. I get confused because we have the house in East Tennessee, and that flopping back and forth from hour to hour to hour is very confusing. You know what? God's clock doesn't have that problem. You say, well, I've never thought about God's clock. Well, yeah, you have. What does the book say about God's clock and our clock? One day is as what? 1,000 years. And 1,000 years is like what? One day. Okay, like one day. God's clock and my clock are not the same. Now, Paul would say, and other references to this same thing, look, your trials and tribulations, what you're going to suffer, just as Moses did, what you're going to suffer is not going to last that long. Why? Well, you're not here that long. James 4 would tell us what? Your life is like a what? Vapor. And how long does the vapor last? Just a little while, and then what does it do? Vanisheth away. And brethren, how true that is, I see it so much. Have y'all ever been to a cemetery before? See, you thought they were sad places. Y'all are laughing. Okay, you've been. How many of them people out there will go down in the history books as somebody famous? What happens to their life? It lives in our memories. I'm so proud of the song, Precious Memories, how they linger, because that's what sees you through, the precious memories of the past. But the person doesn't go down in history. They just kind of vanish into history. And that's exactly what James says, right? Your life is short. It lives for just a little while, and then it vanisheth away. So, brethren, look, Moses is making the decision, even though there's trials and tribulations ahead, that he knows is coming. He's better down that path on this decision to leave Pharaoh than to enjoy the fame and fortune for just a little bit. So Moses' decision is based on the future. Now let's roll all this together. Let's pretend that you got to make a decision. You want to make a good one. First of all, I need to think about the past. And let me give you an example. how would I do this and make it a safe preacher question? Okay, I'll flip the coin over. Hey, how about this? Raise your hand if you have ever seen an answered prayer. Okay? This is just like this. You prayed for something fervently, and you got an answer, and you know what it was. And by the way, will every answer be yes? Have you ever seen a no? Brethren, when I want to make a decision today, would it benefit me to just remember that God is involved in my life by the answered prayers that I have seen in the past? See? I've seen them in the past. You have too. And look, if I can see those answers, I can be reminded of what He has done for me. Just as the children of Israel remembered what God had done for them. Would it benefit me ever to consider in my decision making that not only the past, but I should remember where I am today? It could easily be tied like this. You are where you are today because of what? Blessings from God. And by the way, does God ever run out of blessings? He hadn't yet. You know? It's like Santa Claus in this sense. You know, Santa Claus' bag, he carries that on his back, you know. By the way, I wrote a letter to Santa Claus one time and told him I wanted 2 biscuits with gravy. And that dude gave me 1. And so I decided to write him back. And I said, where is my other biscuit? And I got an answer back. Rudolph ate it on the way down the chimney. You know, even an old man can have fun, right? That sack, have you ever noticed how full it is when these artists draw this picture of this sack? He always has something for somebody, does he not? In the little folklore of Santa Claus, he always has something for somebody. Brethren, God never runs out of blessings, and you are getting one right here tonight. You know what it is? The next breath you take. Isn't that right? You're getting blessings today. So when I want to make a good decision, should I not remember what God has not only done for me in the past, but should I consider what He is doing for me right now? Should I consider that? And if I want to make a good decision, do I not also need to think about my decision compared to the future? You know, I can make a lot of decisions today that might appear to bring me great satisfaction today, but what about tomorrow? I love the story in the New Testament about Jesus, the story of Jesus hiring the workers. Some of the workers come in the morning and they agree to work for this amount. Some of the workers don't come till late in the evening, and the agreement with them is this amount, which happens to equal this. And you remember the story, Jesus would say, hey, look, I'm doing the hiring. I can pay what I want to who I want to. I can do that. Brethren, I've always found it interesting that these guys that were hired at the beginning of the day complain. You know why? they're not considering the future. They're going to need a job tomorrow. And they're complaining about today, and really they're shooting their own foot off because of their decision today to complain will impact if they have a job tomorrow. The same thing is true for us today. When we want to make a decision, and it needs to be a good decision, I need to think about it in light of the future. If I want the future, maybe I ought to consider what's going to happen as a result of it. Don't be like that guy that builded the extra barns, you know. He's talking about the future and his decision. He said, oh, I'll just sit back and be happy. Won't have to do anything. I'll keep my stuff to myself. And on God's clock, that dude's time just ran out. Did he get to enjoy it? Nope. Brethren, it'll help you now in your life and in mine if when we make a decision, we think about the future. And so if I put all of that together now, brethren, I think I'm well down the road to making a good decision. And that's ultimately what we all want, right? Sometimes we just don't remember how to do it. I think that this would be a great start in helping you and me make good decisions. Remember what God has done for you in the past. Remember what He's doing for you right now. And remember what can happen in the future if you make the right decision. All right, I'm supposed to stop at 7:20. That thing says 7:23. 3 minutes over, so I'm going to stop. Who wants to say something? Any comments on making a decision? This will help you now. I'm just going to tell you, I think it'll help you. As a leader or as a regular person. You know, you don't have to have a big position to make a good decision. Yeah.
I was always taught by my grandparents that if you don't remember the past, you're bound to repeat it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And by not remembering the past, you have a high likelihood that you're going to make the wrong decision in the future. Yeah. Good comment. All right, who else wants to make a statement? Okay, well, I hope I didn't give you a headache. What was the number? 924. Okay, so let me just offer a quick little invitation. I don't want to get thrown out just because I ran over, so I'm going to stop. If I were to ask you what is the most important decision you and I will ever make, what would it be? What would you say to that? Who said that? You get a gold star. Yeah. Look, of all the decisions that we're going to make in life, who we're going to serve with our life is the most important one, right? Now, have you ever thought about why that is? Because you see, the one that we serve determines our eternal destiny. I thought it was so sad on the news back when that guy blew up those buildings in Oklahoma. And some religious person went to him right before he was to be killed or executed. Supposedly, I just read this, and the guy asked him, said, "Are you not concerned about the future?" You know what he said? "I'm not concerned about it all. I don't know what's out there, but because of my military training, I'll be able to handle whatever it is." Now, brethren, this is reality. This is how far people get off. You think his military training is going to hold him up against God? I don't think so. See, you and I know as Bible students that it is God that will determine our eternal destiny. It's not ourselves. It's not someone else. It's only God. And so if I want to go where everybody claims that they want to go, heaven, the Bible says I got to serve and be obedient to Him. And that's your choice. That God put in place in Genesis chapter 1. There will not be any soul, as I understand the Bible, in heaven unless they wanted truly to be there. So I would challenge you tonight, and I would challenge you tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. Stay close to God. Make those decisions every day that will keep you close to God. He is the means and the way into heaven. So you would first start by becoming a Christian. But this is not a checkbox religion now, you know. You don't just check it off and say, okay, well, I'm done with that. I'll move on to something else. No, you don't move on to something else. You got to remain faithful each and every day of your life. You do that by making decisions to do so. And so I would just encourage you tonight, just make sure that you recognize the most important decision, consider it, and make a good one by thinking and dwelling upon God, and He'll save your soul. We can help you in any way. Won't you come as we stand together and sing?